Welcome once again, everyone, to another lesson on the Yalak Emet channel, Twitter, YouTube, Patreon. It is July 10th, 2021. This lesson is titled, Bitten by a Beast. Now, in this lesson, Bitten by a Beast, looking at Revelations chapter 18, a couple of verses here, verse 3, 7, and 9 to 11. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornication. So he's talking about this evil, wicked, upside-down Babylon system and giving to you the mark of the beast. As John in the book of Revelations here says it, and many people go ahead and teach that. The way I'm looking at it here is that the mark of the beast is not a microchip or a writing with a marker on your forehead like they taught us as children or showed in the movies and so on. The mark of the beast is nothing new that they're trying to implement right now with some new technology or new trickery. The mark of the beast has been around for a very long time before you and I were born. Remember, in past lessons dealing with the mark of the beast in the past 2 or 3 months that I've done, I mentioned the beast was already there in the Garden of Eden, and the mark came in the picture when Cain was talked about. The Lord put a mark upon him and so on. So, at the start of the book, and what we have been taught, but it's not correct, was the start of creational life on earth. But just going with the 6,000-year book history, at the start there is a mark and a beast, but I'm focusing on the mark here today, not the Cain stuff. The mark, the beast, and Cain. And at the end we also have a mark and a beast again. So Genesis has mark and beast, Revelations has mark and beast. At least it's letting us know that mark and beast cannot possibly be a new thing, some new phenomena that we're wondering about. People are arguing, is this a microchip or a writing on your skin? But rather, the way I'm teaching it here in this lesson is that the mark of the beast is about power through money. The mark of the beast is about power on the earth. The mark is business. So they've drunk of the wrath of her fornication, all these nations. So keep your mind right now on the word nations. It's not individuals getting a microchip planted into them or a marker writing on their foreheads. The mark is not about individuals, although it includes individuals, because individual people make up nations. The mark is about nations, running economies or businesses to make money on the earth by putting down the people of the Most High so that they could take control over the earth and reap the benefits of the earth and continue to stifle us. The mark is business hijacking the economy and the resources of the earth to run business for the wicked at the expense of the people who should be managing the earth like they did in ancient times. The mark is the business of nations, the economy of nations. And the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants, so again, nations and the merchants in those nations. That's why later on it's going to tell you that the merchants were weeping because no man buyeth their merchandise anymore, because the balloon payment came because of the mark that was enforced with violence across the whole earth, or across the nations, or across the lands of the earth. And God delivered the payment for their iniquity, for their sins on the earth. That's why the psalmist said, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? Vain iniquity is what they did. And they cast their mark, or put their mark or their stamp of iniquity upon all the merchants in the nations, and upon the nations who signed up for the iniquity to make money, filthy lucre upon the earth. Those nations took the mark, and the merchants operate based on the mark that they have already received, which I'm going to talk about that in their forehead and their arm in another lesson. And the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. How can they wax rich? Because they got the mark. How can they wax rich? Because they got the mark. So the merchants who are in the nations, they were able to wax rich because they got the mark that allowed them to buy and sell. The mark is about business that nations do through their merchants. It is not a microchip or a marker that writes on your forehead. And of course, I'm just being cheeky, playing around with the word marker, writing in it, because I saw that in a movie when I was a small boy. 666 movie about hell and so on. So that's verse 3. It's still in Revelation 18. Let's look at verse 7 and 9. How much she hath glorified herself and lived deliciously. Right? Because the mark allowed them to live deliciously. So Israel, who did not have the mark and did not participate in the mark. But notice now that some individual Israelites, just a trickle, made lots of money, and sometimes we'll call them, the multimillionaires of our people, which are not most of us, but the ones like, let's say, they sold them souls, as we like to say, or, basically they took the mark for sports or something like that, right? Or in the movie or music industry and so on. They sold themselves. But you see, they do not change Israel even though they participated in the mark system or the beast system. They were bitten by a beast that they were not aware of at first. But they do not change the future deliverance of Israel so that Israel can still get praise and fame in every land where they have been put to shame. Because Israel is not going down, it's just that one or two person here and there, as an Israelite or as a black person who took the mark. But as a nation, Israel does not take the mark. It is the other nations who participated in the beast system. These nations, were bitten by a beast. And the beast controls them. So they live deliciously, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, so you see that so much means a lot of torment and sorrow give her. So Israel does not fit into this verse 7, Revelations 18:7. Because if an individual Israelite takes the mark of business to get huge contracts to make millions of dollars throughout their adult life, in their sports or music industry or whatever, they've taken the mark with the business of the beast. Like I said, the mark is business. so that they can continue to buy and sell in the economy of Babylon. That individual Israelite might suffer in the end. They may, but not everyone is necessarily going to. But Israel as a whole will not receive the suffering, or our suffering is just being pressured and they're coming after us, right, to force us to participate or to just destroy us. But Israel will not receive this torment and sorrow from verse 7, because the torment and sorrow is coming to the nations that took the mark of the beast to participate in the economy, the system, evil system of Babylon. And they got the mark of the beast. They will receive so much torment and sorrow. So it says, so much torment and sorrow give her. For she saith in her heart, I sit a queen. And by the way, that so much torment and sorrow means that these nations who took the mark of the beast to run the economy, like for much of the past 400 years with our slavery and so on, colonization and slavery, the world economy has revolved around us, like they springboarded off our slavery. So that's the mark of the beast right there. But like I said, I'm going to talk about that some more in another lesson. They participated in the mark of the beast to do all this stuff in the earth and to rise to the business of enslaving us, to rise to the top. Because they didn't have the kind of money until they went around the world colonizing lands one by one and killing and enslaving. So that's the mark of the beast in operation. These nations that participated in that, accepted that mark, they went ahead and did all the evil that the beast wanted. So now they were empowered through the mark of the beast, or the venom of the beast that was sunk into them when they were bitten by that beast. And the venom empowered them and gave them a badge of honor, the sign, the mark, the sign to show that they are a part of Babylon. They got the mark of the beast, and they were able to buy and sell and trade over the past few hundred years to rise to the top. And that's why they are the ones running the big countries of the earth. Because they were able to buy and sell under the Babylon system. But when Revelation 18 shows that Babylon is destroyed, then they would weep. Because the mark is business, and once Babylon that's running the business is destroyed and goes down, they have to weep, because now the merchants are like, our operation through the mark is now destroyed. The mark is business. So when the Babylon that's running the business is destroyed, the mark cannot function properly. The mark is not no chip or marker writing on everybody's forehead until that marker runs out and they got to switch the marker. It's nothing like that. The mark of the beast is business, which includes sin, iniquity, etc. Because that kind of business is just sin. So much torment give her, and she saith, for in her heart, I sit a queen, and am no widow, and shall see no sorrow. Why? Because the venom of the beast makes her to feel like as long as you're part of the beast system, you're all right. Verse 9 to 11. And the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her, you see, because they're part of the business. Babylon is running the business. So the kings of the earth, or the nations, committed fornication with the beast, and so they could live deliciously because they could buy and sell. How do you live deliciously like this? Because you can buy and sell based on the mark that you have. So that's it. You're not getting no mark now in 2019, 2020, 2021. The mark is business. That's at not an individual level, but a nation level. The mark is business. That's at not an individual level, but a nation level. It lived deliciously with her, shall bewail her and lament for her when they shall see the smoke of her burning. So once she begins to burn, then the system, or the beast system, the mark system, is burnt up and destroyed. Standing afar off, for the fear of her torment, saying, Alas, alas, that great city, Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And the merchants of the earth shall weep and mourn over her. For no man buyeth their merchandise anymore, for no man operateth based on the mark anymore. No man operates based on the mark, because the mark system, the business system, has been destroyed. And when the business goes down, you can't buy and sell anymore. Babylon is running the business worldwide. So when Babylon burns, the worldwide system is done for. So that's why it says, no man buyeth or selleth anymore. It did not say no man receives chips anymore in them or gets any more marking on their face, on their head anymore. It doesn't say that, because that's not what it was trying to develop. The whole chapter is telling you that money, business, transactions, trading, buying and selling surrounds the operation of the beast system that Babylon is running, because the mark is business, the business of the Commonwealth of the European nations. The mark is business. And when the business burns, that means it's Babylon that's burning. When Babylon is burning, that means the business is burning. It's going down. So the nations, through drunkenness, fornicated with the beast. They were in bed with the beast. And the orgasmic high that they got was the fine merchandise, the riches by which they rose high and strong and mighty in the earth. So it was about riches or filthy lucre, attaining vanity, wealth, and material things by any means. When in their fornicating, drunken state, the beast sunk its venom into them. These nations, they were poisoned with uncontrollable lust when they ate the fruit that would destroy them. The fruit of an evil desire. So Revelations 18 verse 14, and the fruits that thy soul lusted after are departed from thee. Why? Because Babylon got destroyed. They are departed from thee, and all things which were dainty and goodly are departed from thee, and thou shalt find them no more at all. If the mark was just a chip, or people writing stuff with a marker in your head, your forehead, that they bought at the store, then since all these different countries are running their own system right now to force you through mandates, then if Babylon is broken down, why the rest don't keep giving you the microchip and keep letting you line up in a line and writing on the skin of your head? Because remember now, different countries can manufacture markers and different countries can make microchips. So if Babylon goes down, why don't the rest of the countries with massive technologies go ahead and continue manufacturing microchips and so on? Because that's not what the mark of the beast is about. It's not microchip. It's a business operated by the business owner, Babylon. Babylon owns the rights to the business. They opened up shop. And when they burn, since they enforced it through the mark of the beast, which I will talk more about the enforcement, like I said, when I talk about the hand and the forehead in another lesson, they enforced compliance through the mark. So all the nations had to go along with it, and that's why they find it difficult to come out of it for the past few hundred years, especially with our 400-year slavery. They had to keep doing it to us. They took turns enslaving us and so on, because the mark was enforced through the sting of the venom of the beast. So they were bitten, these nations, they were bitten by the serpent from Eden, because that's where the serpent is coming from, and gave them of the fruit. And the nations gave the fruit to their individual citizens who lived according to it and kept feeding off it. And when their citizens saw the fruit as being a good way to bring them sustenance and riches and so on, the citizens, they took also of the fruit of the beast and of murder, of colonization and slavery. Having taken of the fruit, they did eat. So just like with the serpent saying to Eve, go ahead and take that, it's all right. Then Eve took and gave it to the man, and he also did eat. When the rulers of Babylon gave it to the nations and say, look, in your land, you can be rich. You can get land if you follow us, and then you can get riches and get set up and so on. They're like, okay, we sign up. And then they took the same fruit from the beast and offered it to their citizens. And their citizens didn't say, it is not right to do these wicked things to the indigenous and so on of the land, and kill and colonize to keep eating these fruit. The nations didn't say that. They just went ahead and took the fruit, and the citizens went ahead and bit into the fruit, and they also did eat. It's the same story as in Eden. That's why I mentioned Eden earlier. What was at the start is at the end. Genesis, and it's there in Revelations. Some trickster, for want of a better word, wrote this way in the book. But even though the nations went ahead and did all this stuff and took the bait, they were deceived, as in Revelation chapter 19 and verse 20. And the beast was taken, and with him the false prophet that wrought miracles before him, with which he deceived them. So they took the mark because they were deceived by the miracles of the beast. And them that worshipped his image, these both were cast alive into a lake of fire burning with brimstone. So the whole system is just going down. But basically it was by deception. It was all done by deception. That's why I think maybe Psalms 1, if I remember correctly, or somewhere the early chapters of Psalms, it says that the heathen are imagining a vain thing. This is vain what they are doing, because it's going to backfire. It will not work out. They're going to run with it for a long time like they have, but like Isaiah said, their stock will not take root in the earth. Yeah, actually Psalm 2 verse 1, why do the heathen rage and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. How? With Babylon to sign up for the mark of the beast, to run their nations with fornication with the beast, under a beast system. And once they took that mark, then they just ran ahead with it. But they take counsel, these rulers, together against the Lord and against his anointed. All right? So that's how it goes. This was done, though, through deception. Isaiah 10, verse 5. O Assyrian, the rod of mine anger, and the staff in their hand is mine indignation. So this is building up here to let you know the Assyrian is doing this, the way I'm seeing it here. verse 12 to 14. Wherefore it shall come to pass that when the Lord hath performed his whole work upon Mount Zion and on Jerusalem, I will punish the fruit. Here's that fruit again. They took the fruit and gave to each other to eat, gave to their citizens. That the fruit is the fornication that they took from the beast. The nations took the fruit in the fornication with the beast, and then they gave to their citizens, and they did eat of the fruit. I'll punish the fruit of the stout heart of the king of Assyria, and the glory of his high looks, for he saith, by the strength of my hand I have done it, and by my wisdom, and for I am prudent. So the Assyrian is doing all this wickedness on the earth. The biblical Assyrian, based on what the prophet Isaiah is saying, in biblical prophecy, he's saying that even at the end, because it's going to show you that at the end we will be delivered from the Assyrian. So if the Assyrian is going to be the one at the end being punished and destroyed for what they're doing to us and continuing, that means you are under Assyrian power and under Assyrian rule right now. So when you are dealing with mandates and so on, the Assyrian, you must keep your eye on him. I am prudent and have removed the bounds of the people and have robbed their treasures, and I have put down the inhabitants like a valiant man. And my hand hath found as a nest the riches of the people, and as one gathereth eggs that are left, have I gathered all the earth. And if you see stuff going across all the earth right now to do lockdowns and so on, then you've got to understand someone is being described in Scripture as being able to do something to all the earth. In verse 14. And have gathered all the earth, and there was none that moved the wing or opened the mouth or peeped. Is there any that can open their mouth and stop what's going on the earth right now? Where every country has to do the same thing and operate in the same way? None moves their mouth or peep and can stop this. Because according to Isaiah, the Assyrian is in control of all this wickedness. Verse 20 and 21. And it shall come to pass in that day that the remnant of Israel and such as are escaped of the house of Jacob, so mark of the beast will not get you as Israel, even though one or two might take it, because Israel will actually escape. And such as are escaped of the house of Jacob shall no more again stay upon him that smote them, but shall stay upon the Lord, the Holy One of Israel in truth. So this is end times deliverance, which means if he has to deliver you from the Assyrian that's being discussed, that means at the end the Assyrian still has you in his grasp. The remnant shall return, even the remnant of Jacob, unto the mighty God. Assyrian bondage is what we are dealing with here. Isaiah chapter 31 and verse 8. Then shall the Assyrian fall with the sword. So this is still biblical eschatology now, so end times. That means the Assyrian you talked about in Babylon and Assyrian captivity, at the end the Assyrian will still be there. And I'm going to be making lesson about Assyrian because I guess now I have to. Then shall the Assyrian fall with the sword, not of a mighty man, and the sword not of a mean man. So as we read earlier in Zephaniah 3, you're going to be getting praise and fame in all lands where you have been put to shame. And the Assyrian just praised himself, saying, I'm prudent and I have wisdom and I have done this to all the earth. Then how are you going to get your worldwide deliverance to have praise and fame in all lands where you have been put to shame? It is because the Assyrian is running all the world and will be falling with the sword in Isaiah 31 verse 8. He's going to fall and lose power over all the earth. Not of a mighty man and the sword, not of a mean man shall devour him, but he shall flee from the sword, and his young men shall be discomfited. But it's in end times because the Assyrian is running the show under the guise or the cover of other names. So the Assyrians, they will flee. They are the ones doing this to Israel until the end, according to the prophet Isaiah in biblical eschatology. So Revelation 18 is a business. It is the merchants who cannot buy or sell without following the rules according to the mark of the beast that bit them. So when the government puts all these pressure on you and so on, it is because of the beast system that's been long in operation and long planned. It's not a new thing waiting for technology to come up to make microchips. They were doing this already through slavery and so on. The heathen rage, they take counsel together and doing their vain plans and taking their counsel to cut us off, to get power to run the earth, to make money through their worldwide business that they do through their merchants in the nations that are running stuff worldwide. And when the business gets burnt up, when Babylon is destroyed, then the merchants cry and the nations begin to suffer because the business owner was destroyed and burnt with fire in Revelations 18. But Israel is not destroyed if you read Revelations 18, because Israel was never part of the Babylon system. That's why it said, come out of her. Why? You can be told to come out because you are not part of the Babylon mark of the beast system, and you never received the mark of the beast and participated in it, because you are only in Babylon as punishment. So he's telling you, come out because you are not part of the system. You are just trapped in the system because somebody won't let you go. So now he commands to come out of her, my people. So Israel can be told to come out because Israel is not part of the system, because Israel keeps the commandments, so they can be told to separate, to come out. The merchants were made rich by the business that they operated worldwide based on the long-standing mark of the beast that they agreed to long ago. And it was used, this mark of the beast, to seize power over the world and to conquer the world and to put us in slavery as well. They were bitten by the beast, but payday is coming. Babylon will burn and you will be free. Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, Yalak, Emet channel. Payday is coming. Payday. Payday. Payday.